Cheeky back heel.
With ease, Miguel Azeez, his first goal for Portsmouth.
Into the path of Smith-Rowe, into the box. Smith-Rowe scores! A really deserved first goal in Huddersfield Town colours.
Welcome to what is kind of a special edition of Away from Hale End, as we are going to detail what the Arsenal under-21s and under-18s setup is going to look like for the rest of the 24 season. I'm Will Balsam. You know me if you know this channel. If not, hit the subscribe button below. We cover everything there is to know about Arsenal's academy, about Hale End, and more specifically about the players out on loan from our academy. But today, and yes, we will get to our loan players, but today we're going to start with the under-21s and what that setup looks like now, considering the loan moves that have happened, obviously the permanent moves that have happened, the likes of Lino Sousa leaving, the likes of Miguel Azeez leaving, the likes of Ibrahim leaving, and then of course Khayon Edwards and Zane Monlouis going out on loan, as well as of course the group that was already out. That leaves quite a few gaps and quite a few interesting discussions to be had about what that under-21 side is going to look at. And what we're going to do here is just go position by position, discuss who is likely to be in the starting lineup every week, and who are some ulterior options and people who have a real chance with those openings to kind of make a name for themselves at Hale End. It's not that talked about, but this January to June window is oftentimes when we see players that we did not necessarily know that much about or not necessarily expect that much from make a huge leap because they are given the opportunity to succeed when more players have gone on loan. Let's start with the goalkeepers. Ovie Ejaghiri has been the #1 goalkeeper for the under-21s for most of the season, and that should remain. Many believed, and I agree, he should have gone on loan for at least the second half of this year, if not the entirety of the year. He was on loan for all of last year, and he was excellent at both Chelmsford City and then at Seinäjoki in Finland. There's no reason for him to be at the under-21 setup still, except for the fact, and this is what I've discussed a few times, that it's a good opportunity for him to work on his distribution. Arsenal's under-21s are going to play a very similar system to what the senior squad plays, which means the goalkeeper needs to be comfortable with their feet. When you go play for Chelmsford City, or you go play for a Leyton Orient, or a team in the lower leagues, you're likely to not be playing with the ball at your feet all that much, and that's really where Ejaghiri needs to get better. He is an unbelievable shot stopper. That's why I believe he has stayed. The other options, of course, at goalkeeper include Hubert Gracic, who has had a very bizarre year, was supposed to be on loan at Slough Town for the entirety of the year, was recalled after 4 matches, has not featured for the under-21s, only been on the bench once. Then Carl Hine is an option. He has played a couple games for the under-21s, but of course he's already graduated to the senior team. And James Hilson, who I've spoken a little bit about him. I don't really see him as an under-21s player. He's really an extra goalkeeper in training, travels with the squad as the 3rd goalkeeper often. He is just an extra body, and I do believe when his contract ends that he will be leaving the club. All right, now let's talk about defense. And this is an interesting one because there's a lot of players who can play in a lot of different positions. With Zane Monlouis leaving, that means Roel Walters is going to step in as a center back most likely. He was one of the options at right back. James Sweet, of course, has been another option at right back for the under-21s for a couple of years now. He's likely the starting right back each week. He's 20 years old. This is his age group. This is his real chance to make a name for himself. I wouldn't be totally surprised if we see him leave permanently at the end of the summer, but nonetheless, he is likely your starting right back with the under-21s. Of course, there are some younger options who are very interesting in this position as well. First and foremost, my favorite Hale Ender left at the moment, Michal Rosiak, the 18-year-old who has made 6 under-21 appearances. He's made 6 youth league appearances. So he is on the verge of making that step up. But we know he also likes to play in midfield, but more specifically, he's really an inverted right back. James Sweet can play that role as well, but he does really like to overlap. He does really like to make runs down the line. Michal Rosiak, especially with Lino Sousa leaving, there's a lot of things to think about here. We might see that inverted position now swap with the under-21s. Sousa was often playing it. We might now see Michal Rosiak playing some right back, or James Sweet as well, and have them stepping in as the inverted fullback. Rosiak is incredible in that role, and I think we're going to see him play a lot of midfield as well for the under-18s and even possibly the under-21s. But he is truly a huge talent. This is his time to play some under-21s football and then hopefully go out on loan next year if all goes well with the under-21s this year. That's not a guarantee. I could see him spending the first 6 months of next year with the under-21s as well, playing in the youth league as well. trying to get that experience, and then next January going on loan. But Rosiak is the kind of player who may not even need a loan period before he jumps to the first team. Think about a Rico Lewis, somebody who is so supremely skilled technically and on the ball and so sure of themselves that they actually don't need that loan spell to take the step up. I'm not saying that's a guarantee, but Miguel Rosiak is now in a really interesting position. If he can cement himself as the inverted right back for the under-21s in the next 6 months, I will just say the world is his oyster moving forward. Some other right back options. We have Josh Robinson, who's an incredibly talented player. He's made 4 under-21 appearances, also an 18-year-old, and 2 Youth League appearances. Of course, the Youth League, if you don't remember, is the UEFA Youth League. Since Arsenal made the Champions League, they were a part of that. It's an under-19s competition. And then Josh Nichols, a 17-year-old, who has made 6 under-21 appearances and 6 Youth League appearances, also is a possibility at right back. Both of them have played both a little right back, have played a little left back, and also have played some center back. They're more defender types. So I would imagine, and we'll go to left back next instead of center back, that whoever we play in the right back, left back position, one of them is going to be the inverted fullback, and one of them is going to be the defensive fullback, for lack of a better term. James Sweet and Rosiak are probably your best inverted options left at the club at the moment, aside from Aiden Heaven, who has played some left back. First, let's talk about Henry Jeffcott, who is likely going to be your starting left back with the under-21s, or at least one of your main left backs. He was on loan, of course, with Derby's under-21s for the first half of this year. That loan was terminated. He played quite a bit for how little they played. I don't really understand their scheduling. They had very few matches. But I would expect him to play a lot of left back. He can play center back as well, left center back, for the under-21s. Then there's Elian Quesada Thorne, the young Costa Rican, 18, who's an incredibly talented left back and has already played quite a few times with the under-21s, which is crazy considering he's basically been injured for the last 18 months. Very talented, been out injured for a while. Hopefully he comes back at some point this year. That could be his position, that left back role. Then there's Luis Brown, who is an 18-year-old who's mainly a center back. He has not played for the under-21s or the under-19s at all, but he has found a lot of success at left back with the under-18 group. I'm not sure he'll be a week in and week out player, but I would expect to see him play some matches here at left back for the under-18s. He's a very highly touted player over the last 6-9 months. He's really risen through the ranks and become a big name. He has linked up really well with Maldini Kakuri and Aiden Heaven in the under-18s. He played some center back pairings with Maldini Kakuri. They have a really good chemistry, and we're going to see Kakuri play center back a lot, I think, for the under-21s. And then, of course, Aiden Heaven, the incredibly talented 17-year-old, who's really a central midfielder, but has been asked to play a lot of left back and center back because they're trying to teach him some more defensive qualities. He has 6 under-21 appearances already and 5 Youth League appearances. Aiden Heaven, whatever it is going to find his way into this under-21 team a lot for the rest of this season. Then we'll talk center backs. The main two are going to be Rule Walters and Taylor Foran. Those are the two who have been with the under-21s. They have good chemistry together. They've played a bunch together. Foran, of course, has already spent some time on loan at Hartlepool last year. Rule Walters has 6 months left on his contract. They are trying to tie him down to a long-term deal, but he will be playing center back alongside Taylor Foran most weeks. And as I mentioned, Maldini Kakuri, the young Albanian, 18 years old, has played 4 times with the under-21s, 3 times in the Youth League this year, will also spell them in center back sometimes. And as I mentioned, with the right back group, Josh Robinson and Josh Nichols both, I expect, would be emergency center backs if needed. That's the defense. That's where there's been a big mix-up, obviously, a big change, obviously, with the fact that Zane Monlouis left, Lino Sousa left. I will also just mention that Mauro Bandera, who was on loan at Colchester, who has not gone out on loan, he was recalled and then has not gone back out on loan yet. He played some right back last year in this time frame of the year when there was a lot of moving around. We could see him play that inverted right back role as well. I think he's a very talented player, a very physically gifted player, an excellent vertical passer. So he's an interesting option at right back as well. Let's talk about the 6. Let's talk about our defensive midfielder. That's going to be Miles Lewis-Skelly or Jack Henry Francis pretty much every single week. The two of them might play together quite a bit, as Miles Lewis-Skelly is also happy to play as that left-sided 8. But I do think that they're trying to help him learn some defensive responsibilities, trying to help him kind of dictate tempo, try and learn take responsibility in a match and play him a lot in that role. I think Jack Henry Francis has kind of not regressed, but he has not really grown in the way that we were expecting. He was rumored to go on loan 2 years ago and never went. I don't expect him to be necessarily starting every week, but he'll be very heavily involved in the side as a midfielder. He also can play as an 8. And as I mentioned, Miguel Azeez, we may see him play some defensive midfield. Now let's talk about the 8. And I think we're going to see a lot of Jimmy Gower there. We are going to see a lot of Ismail Oulad Emhan, that's Salah Eddin's younger brother. We're going to see some Mauro Bandeira if he doesn't go on loan. He needs to get some playing time. I think he's a very talented player. And then we're going to see Harrison Dudziak, who has started to play a little bit more often with the under-21s. Very interesting midfielder, very solid on the ball, pretty good in challenges, pretty good duel winner. He could work on his ability driving forward and kind of his final third actions, but I think he's an interesting player who I wouldn't be surprised if he also kind of gets turned into an inverted right back or has a chance of spending some time there. But those are the main options there as one of the 8s. And then Ethan Nwaneri. I expect Ethan Nwaneri to be in the under-21 side every single week if he's not with the senior team. He's going to be that most forward midfielder. He's going to be the creative player sitting behind the front 3, making things happen. He's just been unbelievable with the under-21s this year. If he continues on this form, he's going to be a part of the senior setup next year. That is just a fact. Him and Miles Lewis-Skelly, if they continue to play the way they've been playing, if they stay healthy, the two of them have just been awesome. Nwaneri especially has been just ridiculous at the under-21 level. And then the forwards. This is where it gets a little bit interesting, obviously with Khayon Edwards leaving, but Nathan Butler-Oyedeji coming back off of loan, kind of a one-for-one swap, but I don't know that Arsenal see Butler-Oyedeji as a major importance to the under-21 setup. Let's first start on the right wing. That's a Mario Cozier-Dewberry spot. He will start there every week, assuming he's healthy. They are also trying to tie him down to a new long-term contract. He, of course, is being sought after by the likes of Dortmund and Anderlecht and Ajax. All the best clubs at scouting young players in the world are trying to sign him for free at the end of this year. But there is hope that Arsenal will be able to keep him under contract. Some options at left wing. It's going to be a real battle, and I think this is great to have competition at this role. It is going to be between the two hottest attackers in the entirety of this academy setup right now, which is Osman Kamara and Ismail Kabia. The two of them are incredible. They're both very similar. I think Kamara is probably a little bit of a better finisher. He seems to be able to manipulate the ball to get better shot creating actions at times. I would say Kabia is the better creator in terms of his ability to assist, be in the right place at the right time. He's a very smart out of possession, whereas Kamara is probably a little bit more dangerous with the ball at his feet. But the two of them are both excellent with the ball at their feet, dribbling at somebody. They're really good at kind of changing of direction, making that final action potent. And I'm excited to see both of them play. Kabia is really a little bit lesser known because he's been injured for a while, and I guess he kind of broke back into the under-21s, and people are wondering where he's been. I do plan on doing a profile on him soon. Of course, you can check out my Osman Kamara profile if you want to know more about him. You are going to get to see him with the under-21s. He's awesome, especially off that left wing. And then at striker. Before we get to striker, actually, let's talk about Daniel Oyetunde, who can play anywhere across the front line. I think he may get a chance to, come off the bench a few times, maybe get a start with the under-21s. He's been battling some injury as well over the past year. The striker conversation is super interesting because if you just look at it based off of age and experience, Nathan Butler-Oyedeji will probably be the starting striker every week. But I think Cheeto Obi is got to be a guy who's getting some starts and getting acclimated with this level this year so that next year he can spend the entirety of the year as the starting striker for the under-21s. He's physically ready. There's no question about that. He's technically ready. There's no question about that. It's just a matter of if we're able to prioritize his growth as such a young player, just a 16, 17-year-old, over the likes of getting playing time to Nathan Butler-Oyedeji, and then, of course, Omari Benjamin, who has kind of become a little bit of a forgotten player in ways at the academy level. He is extremely talented. He is super physical for his size. He's really good at running in the channels, at receiving the ball with his back to goal, and he's a great finisher and a great creator in the final third. He's does a little bit of everything. I don't think he is necessarily in the talent pool of Cheeto Obi. I don't think he's even at the level that Khayon Edwards was at. He's certainly not a Mika Biarritz or a Balogun, but he's an interesting player nonetheless and somebody who I think can really succeed in the English leagues. So I think he'll get some playing time with the under-21s as well. And then there are some injuries of guys who will probably, if they do come back, maybe get involved in this front three. That's Henry Timmy Davies, who's really been injured for 2-3 years. Very unfortunate, talented player. And Seb Ferdinand as well, who's been out for a long-term injury for a little while. But that is the under-21 setup. You'll see the graphic on screen kind of displaying that. Those are the guys I would expect to really be involved with the under-21s for the rest of the year as they push forward. And then with all of these players who were not really with the under-21s kind of taking the step up, let's talk about what the under-18s will look like. Of course, some of these players I just spoke about will probably get involved in the under-18s and will once in a while make that step up. Even the likes of Achito Obi likely will play many more matches for the under-18s this year as well. Starting at goalkeeper, Noah Cooper. Noah Cooper and Alexi Rojas have been kind of alternating as the starting goalkeeper for the under-18s. They are both supremely talented. Probably two of the most talented goalkeepers that have been at Hale End in the last decade up to this point. Remember, it's not a linear progression for young players. Some jump earlier, some jump later, some continue to rise and rise and rise to become the best in the world. Those two are likely going to be the main two under-18s goalkeepers. You may even see one of them feature for the under-21s. Depending on what happens with Gracic and Hine and Ejahiri in the next few weeks, you may see Cooper or Rojas take a step up. Brian Okonkwo will also potentially get in there once in a while. The likes of Jack Porter, Owen Asamoah, Kari Ranson, probably not going to see them with the under-18s this year. I'd be pretty surprised. They're mostly with the under-16 setup. Also, very talented. Asamoah and Ranson, really, really talented players with the ball at the feet. Jack Porter's an excellent shot stopper. They're often involved in the England under-16 setup, all three of them at once sometimes. They're really some of the best young goalkeepers in the country for that age group. Right back. Let's talk right back. So I think Miguel Azeez is going to mostly make a step up here. If he's going to play right back, I think it's going to be with the under-21s. If he's going to play with the under-18s, I think he's going to be playing as a lone six to teach him more defensive responsibility, to teach him covering space. Same kind of things we talk about all the time with that role. I think Josh Nichols and Theo Julien are going to alternate as the right backs here for the under-18s. Both also are happy to kind of play at the left back role. Julien a little bit more comfortable there. Julien is a midfielder turned inverted fullback at a very young age. He is incredibly tidy in tight spaces. Like, he has an incredible amount of ball control. He is super confident in his abilities to wriggle out of little areas and progress the ball forward. He kind of reminds me of Zinchenko on the ball in terms of his size, his ability, and not necessarily his lack of burst, but the fact that he does not rely on burst to kind of get out of these tight situations. Them two, I think, are the prime suspects for right back. Center backs, we're going to see Maldini Kaukuri play quite a bit. His partner will likely be Will Sweet. That's James Sweet's younger brother. And then you'll see Kobe Small and Luis Brown also probably get involved in the center backs. Like Kaukuri, when he plays with the under-21s, you probably see Kobe Small step in. And then at left back, we're going to have Cameron Ismail and Luis Brown. Again, depending. If Luis Brown's playing with left backs for the under-21s, you're going to see more Cameron Ismail, who's had some injury woes. And Theo Julien's going to play some left back. I don't think you would see Rosiak right back and Theo Julien left back, similar to what I was talking about with the under-21s. If you see Josh Nichols at right back, all right, then you probably want an inverted left back. You might see Theo Julien step in there. That's probably what the back four looks like. The lone six role, that's going to be Miguel Azeez, unless he's playing with the under-21s. He's going to play there. He's going to dictate tempo. He's going to be creative. He's going to be the start and end of every attack. That is what Miguel Azeez does. He is very good at this level. If he continues to play there, it is because he needs to learn more defensive responsibility. Then in midfield, we have some great options. Dan Casey has been awesome as of late. I expect him and Harrison Dudziak, who I mentioned prior, to be the main pairing as the 2-8s for the under-18s. The two of them have been looked really good together as of late. I really enjoy watching them together. Casey is especially good in the final third. Reminds me a little bit of Aaron Ramsey in the way he pops up late, looking for goal-scoring opportunities. He has a great shot from outside the box, pretty good finisher, very talented young 17-year-old. Some other options we'll have at midfield, you have Bless Akobar, Louis Copley, who's a good player, and Zach Schaub, who's only 16, but has played a couple times for the under-18s already. I think you'll see Copley and Bless play some more than Zach Schaub, but those are the main guys I would expect to get involved there with the under-18s. And then the attack very much depends on who's not playing with the under-21s. I think you're going to see Kabi and Kamara kind of alternating playing with the under-21s and the under-18s. They're going to one of them will probably take one of the wing positions. Kamarni Ryan is an especially talented young player who can play as an attacking midfielder, but is more likely likes to play off of the right wing, as well as Daniel Oyatunde, who I mentioned before. Those guys are probably going to take a lot of the left wing spot. Kamarni Ryan, I think, likes to play right wing a little bit more. Then you have Seb Ferdinand, who I mentioned is injured. Romari Ford also will like to play at the right wing. A lot of the winger and striker positions are going to depend on the under-21s, as I said. And then at striker, you have Cheeto Obi and Amari Benjamin. So it's like, it just depends what's going on with the under-21s. These are the names that are going to be involved in the front three. It's going to be a little bit of a mosh posh of guys. Again, just to name those guys, it's going to be Ismail Kabia, Osman Kamara, Kamani Ryan, Daniel Oyatunde, Seb Ferdinand, Romari Ford, Cheeto Obi, and Amari Benjamin. Those guys I would expect to take up the front three spots most weeks, depending on who's involved with the under-21s. Then, of course, there's a few even younger players to watch who start to make those step up to the under-18s during this time period, even before some of them even have a scholarship. Lewis-Skelly John, who's a young Serbian-English attacker, likes to play mostly off the right wing, only 16 years old, but has already debuted for the under-18 and scored with that age group in one of his 2 appearances for them. Just recently scored a brace for the under-17s against Leyton Orient. Especially talented young player. He thinks very highly of himself. He likes to stay humble, but he said, I'm a bit of everything. If I was to choose, I'd say I'm Mbappe for his pace and dribbling, Sadio Mane for his skillful play, and maybe Kane or Lewandowski for my shooting. That is straight out of the mouth of Lewis-Skelly John. Very talented player. I've seen him play with Arsenal's under-16s in some of those other tournaments, the one in France, the one in Brazil. Very, very good player. Again, if Kabia and Kamara and Cheeto Obi are all playing with the under-21s, this is an opportunity where you might see a Lewis-Skelly John step up to the under-18s. Then, of course, there's Max Dowman, who recently turned 14, made his debut with the under-18s as a 13-year-old. Incredibly physically gifted midfielder for his age. He's massive, great in tight spaces, really confident in his ability, great runner with the ball at his feet, really good progressive player. I think you'll see him make at least one more appearance for the under-18s this year. You have Alex Marciniak, who's an attacking midfielder, 15 years old, really good creative outlet, really excellent at finding direct vertical balls in behind and driving at defenses, excellent close control as well. Max Kuzinski, who made his rounds on Twitter recently because he was in first team training and there was one picture of him and his squad number was 102 and people loved that. A 17-year-old who can play as a center back and a left back. He's been awfully injured in the last year or so, hasn't featured much, only played for the under-17s, but he is back to full training, and since he's trained with the first team, I would expect to see him with the under-18s rather soon. For a 17-year-old to have never made the under-18s is rare, but certain situations play out the way they do. I would expect to see him play a little bit the rest of the year. And lastly, Jakai Basco Fisher is a 16-year-old who's made one appearance for the under-18s so far. Very versatile attacker, can play anywhere across the front line. We might get to see him play a little bit with the under-18s. But there you go. That's the under-21s and under-18 setups, what they'll look like for the rest of the year. And of course, there could always be another schoolboy who is a Max Dowman, who's a 13-year-old who makes an under-18s appearance that we don't even know about yet. So keep your eyes out. Some exciting next 6 months for them. That is everything on Away from Hale End this week. If you enjoyed the content, if you want to continue to follow the under-21s, the under-18s, and our players on loan, make sure to hit the subscribe button right down below. Leave a comment. Let me know what you want me to talk about. Let me know if you agree with what the under-21 and under-18 setups are going to look like for the rest of the year. I hope you guys are enjoying it. As always, I appreciate all the love. Make sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next week.